Welcome to Nicki's Crochet Podcast, where you get to know your favorite crochet designers from a totally different perspective. We aim to make you smile and, of course, wanting more. I'm your host, Nicki, from Nicki's Homemade Crafts, and today's guest is Tamara from Moogly. And make sure, before we get started, that you hit that subscribe button for both my channel as well as her channel. It's all linked down in the description, as well as all additional links you might need for this podcast. So let's welcome Tamara from Moogly. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be asked to be on your very first podcast. It's a real thrill. And just thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I know, it's like something I've been wanting to do for so long, and so many people have asked me for it. I was like, okay, mine as well, because I never really wanted to do an audio version. It's like, I needs
Hmm.
to be a visual version. We're crocheters. We got to show something off, right? Besides, we have all beautiful
Absolutely.
faces. Might as well show them off, right? It's much better that
For
way.
sure.
But let me jump right in. So I know, I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere on your website, what your name Moogly is all about. But let me ask you, what is it really about? I'm sure some people don't know, and I'm sure there's some funny story behind it.
Absolutely. Well, when I started crocheting, it was when my daughter was about 6 months old. I'd wanted to learn before that, but that was the first chance I'd had to have somebody teach me how to crochet. So I did it as a hobby for a while. And then I actually decided to start a mommy blog. That's what Moogly was first. It was going to be a mommy blog about raising my kids. Mommy blogs were really in back then. It was the 2000s. And I thought, oh, I can do that. I've got funny kids.
That's
Well, it turns
great.
out mommy blogging is a lot harder than you'd think. So eventually it became a crochet blog. That worked better for me. But we chose the name Moogly because when my daughter was about 2 years old, she, was learning to talk and she was coming up with a few of her own words. And I think anybody who's had little kids knows sometimes they've got their own words for things. And so anytime she stepped on anything that was wobbly, or if, how like little kids love to just like climb on things. If there's, a curb, they're going to walk down the curb, edge, or they're going to walk along the railing or whatever. Anytime it was a little unsteady or wiggly, she'd say, "Ooh, it's so moogly." We didn't know where she'd come up with that, but we just thought it was so funny. And of course, it became a family word after that. Anytime anything felt really wobbly or unsteady, or, you just didn't know what you were doing, and be like, "Ooh, it's so moogly." And so when I decided to start a mommy blog, just like crochet blogging, I didn't know what I was doing. And Moogly just seemed really appropriate. I felt very shaky. I had no clue how to start all this. Um, and with the mommy blog, I got maybe 10 posts up that I eventually removed because they made no sense for a crochet blog. But I did put one crochet pattern up on that blog right away. Just, as a, hey, look what I'm doing, part of my mommy blogging thing. And that actually took off. So I couldn't get rid of the Moogly name. I just decided to stick with it. I really, really didn't know what I was doing when it came to crochet
Yeah.
blogging or designing. So it just seemed to still fit. We already own the URL. Little did I know that, since then I've taken business classes and,
Yep.
different seminars and things. Breaks every rule of naming a crochet business. It has nothing to do with crochet at all. Doesn't even say
Yes.
crafts in there anywhere, nothing. But
Exactly.
but it's memorable. So I think it's worked for me pretty well.
I love it. First when I heard your name, I thought of like the Jungle Book or something like that.
Mm.
For some odd reason, that's the first thing I popped in my head the first time I heard about you. But you're telling me the story, and it feels almost similar to mine because there's no crochet in my name either. I actually started as a crafter. I was like, I can do
Hmm.
DIY, I can do so. I loved all crafts. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like, what can I do? Right. But then I was like, crocheting was the same way for me. It's like I started with crocheting
Hmm.
and something took off. One of my videos took off. I was like, okay, I guess I stick with crocheting then.
Yeah.
And skip all the other things. I
Yep.
deleted a bunch of blog posts too that were crafts in general. So yeah, I hear
Mm.
ya. I
Yeah.
feel ya.
I was just saying
So
it's funny to go back to some of those old posts too and just be like, oh, what was I doing back then?
yeah, let's not even talk about SEO because that was a whole
Yeah.
nother story. I didn't even know what I was doing in the beginning. What in the world is SEO?
Right. Yeah. No, it was
So
it was a very different world. Just it's amazing. Things of course change incredibly fast on the
mhm.
internet, but it's cracked me up since the very beginning. People have been saying, well, where do you see it being in 5 years? And I'm like, with the internet, who knows? And I'm like, I'm glad I didn't make any predictions because I never would have guessed. I never would have guessed,
I
where things have gone over the last 12 years or so.
Exactly, I'm the same way. My goals are very general, more kind of like, I
Hmm.
wanna just improve myself in some kind of
Yeah.
way and challenge myself and, somehow still please my audience, but I
Hmm.
still wanna make it good and entertaining of some sort, but do I have a specific goal? Not exactly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do that kind of reminds me, do you have a specific pattern you have never made but really, really want to?
Yes, and it is probably one of my most requested and therefore one of my most dreaded. And it's the reason I haven't done it is because there's so much pressure to do it right.
Mhm.
I designed it took me 6 months to do the baby version. It was the Eloise baby sweater, and it was something I had in my head. It literally was 6 months of developing in my head how to do it, and once you see the pattern, you're like, "Oh, this is really easy and simple," but it took me a long time to figure out how to do
Mhm.
that, what I wanted to do. And, and I got a lot of flack when it first came out too. It turned out to be one of my more popular patterns over time, but
Uh-oh.
I got a lot of flack for it when I first came out because it was mostly gray. And
Oh,
back then, people were not putting gray on babies. It had pops of
interesting.
color that I thought really livened it up. I was trying to make like kind of like a little coat or something.
It is
Um,
neutral.
but yeah, it was a neutral. And oh my gosh, I got so many comments about gray for babies. That's crazy. Don't put gray on babies. I'm like, well, you can make it whatever color you want, obviously, and people do.
Yeah.
Um, but since then, after a while, it took off. You know, people loved it or hated
Mhm.
it. Fortunately, a lot of people loved it. But since then, I've had so many requests for an adult version.
Oh,
And
interesting.
adults are just harder. Adults are so much harder to fit a sweater
Yes.
for than a baby. I mean,
Yes,
we've
that's
got
true.
curves and things, and, doing a sweater like this where it's kind of oversized and,
Yes.
just kind of generally straight is one thing, but this
Yes.
sweater has like a flare. And so I'm trying to figure out, is it going to be a peplum? Is it an empire waist? What do we do with this? How do we translate this into the adult version?
Yes, I
So for
totally get it.
years now, I've been just trying to, and every
Oh
time
my
I think I'm getting
god.
close, I'm just, I don't know. I don't know.
I
It's a
totally
hard
get
one to
it,
translate.
but the good thing is you got a bunch of comments, right? And for those
Yeah.
people who are listening, if they are in some kind of business, they know that having comments doesn't matter if it's bad or good. It drives
Yeah.
up engagement and it's actually good for
Yes.
us, but
Well, it's maybe not good for our mental health sometimes, but
that is
it's good for the
true.
business
That's
health.
true. But I'm glad that we have the power to delete comments we don't like. So,
Yes.
it has a
True,
good thing
true.
to it.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
But the funny,
Yeah, it got a little crazy. I think that is, in fact, the one video I have on YouTube where I have turned off comments because
oh
it
my
did get
God.
crazy. Yeah.
It I have actually a reversed version of what you do is
Mm,
because I have never had a biological child, I never really designed anything for babies because that's one of the things that I get all the time. It's like, can you just create some baby designs? I'm like, I don't have
mm.
a baby to test things out, and I'm not going to aim for just some measurements on the World Wide Web. So if you
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
if it's the right size, will that fit? Will the baby like
Mhm.
it? All that. I don't have any idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have
No,
the
I always
reversed
get really
version.
jealous. I always get jealous when a designer has a new baby. Not that I want another baby. My baby is 15, but I am jealous of designers with babies because that model, my gosh.
Yes.
Dolls just don't cut it. I've tried. I've tried to
No.
find a doll that would make like a good baby mannequin.
Yeah.
They're just creepy. They're
You
all
just
creepy. I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Exactly. It scares the bejesus out of me. But there
Mm.
are babies out there where I thought for a second that they're real. Like I've seen a
Yeah.
few on TikTok where I'm like,
Oh,
what are you doing with
yeah.
this baby? And I'm like, wait, that's a doll. But it took me like a good 15 seconds to figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. There
oh
are
my word.
those real dolls. I knew one designer who managed to snag one of those real dolls at like a thrift store.
Yeah.
Because those are like, I don't know if they're called that. That's, oh gosh, I think that might be the adult version. But the babies that look like they're completely real, there's some
Yes.
name for it.
I
And
don't
some of them look a little too real, we'll put it that way.
yes.
But yeah, if you can find one of those, but they're so expensive, like
I
hundreds of
agree.
dollars.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
have some friends around that have some babies and they're okay with
yeah.
taking pictures and you're good.
I know. I'm at the age now where I have to wait for like my daughter's friends to start having babies so I can borrow them.
At some point, our kids will have kids, and then we'll just turn
Yes.
that around. We'll make something happen.
Yep.
But speaking of family, I know that your husband's very techie,
Yes.
and he's kind of the tech side of your blog. But have you ever tried to get him to crochet, and how was that experience? If that really did happen?
I've tried, and actually I tried again very recently. Over the years, I mean, he's always been my videographer. He was
Mhm.
the person who encouraged me to start the whole YouTube channel. So, I feel like he knows. Like he's looking over my shoulder. You just said double crochet. Aren't you doing a single crochet? He knows to watch me do it. So, but sitting down once you put that yarn and hook in his hands, he was like, nope, nope, it's just not. I can see it, but I can't do it. I think that hand motion hadn't come to him.
Yeah.
However, I have taught him how to weave in ends, and I think that's even better.
That's a good point. I should do that with my husband. I tried to teach my husband how to do the chains, and he's doing okay, but he doesn't have the hand coordination to
Yeah.
hold it. It's like, I don't know how to hold both of them at the same time. There's something is not right. So I feel you. But my husband loves the single crochet. And it's like he just loves the look of it. I'm just like, it's just a single crochet. Like there's more fancier stitches. Are you sure you don't like something else? He just likes that texture of the tight, stitches together with the same look. He just loves that. So totally, I love that idea. But speaking of designs and some funny things, tell me, do you have like a pattern that has a funny backstory? I do have one, but I prefer not talking about it because it's like, ooh, I wish I never did it. But do you have some pattern? They were like, it has either funny backstory or turned into something really funny in the end because you didn't expect that.
Well, there's been many times where I've started out thinking I was going to make one thing and it became something else, or, it was going to be one type of sweater. And then somebody said, what about, pleats? And I was like, oh my gosh, pleats, let's put pleats in it. But I think one of the most fun ones I did was this many years ago. I did a mystery crochet along in 3 parts, and people didn't know what they were making until it was all finished.
Yes.
And I managed to have them it was the silliest thing. It's a fish pouch. Just like a drawstring pouch that looks like a fish.
Yes.
But it was so funny because when you're making those parts, you have no clue. You're like, what?
No.
It's too small to be a cowl. It's too big to be a cup cozy. And it was just so funny seeing people's reactions when it was all over. And of course, then the mystery is over. So the whole pattern's out there now as a fish pouch. But that one was just a whole lot of fun, watching everybody's reactions to all the parts and trying to guess what on earth we were making.
Totally, because I actually do mystery crochet alongs every month now. Like I started them and they were so popular. I was like, you know what? Should I do them monthly? I asked them. They're like, yes, do a monthly. I'm like, okay. But there are funny things that come out of them. Like I've done a few bunnies and stuff, but the way I aim to design the patterns so that they can't guess, you can totally make it easier on the pattern, right? But they would guess it immediately. So you have to kind of twist it a little bit and take things apart. But there are times where I'm like, oh, I didn't even see that. Like how did that go? Are you guessing that? Like, really?
Right?
But it's so funny. It makes me smile the entire time and it just keeps me going. And everyone loves that. So mystery crochet alongs are fun. Maybe at some point you and I should do one together. That would be fun.
That would be a lot of fun. Oh it's been a long time since I've done one of those, so that would be a lot of fun.
I did one with Nadia from Yarn Utopia as a collaboration. It was so much fun. So I'm hoping at some point I can do it with another designer again. And maybe it will be you.
Yeah.
It would be really, really fun. But
yeah. I did do one once with Marley, which was really fun. She did the knit version and I did the crochet version.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like a little capelet that you could make in a day. I definitely got the easier one. We did like super bulky yarn, and I think mine was all of like 13 rows. So the crochet people definitely had an easier time of that project.
That is funny. The stories between crocheting and knitting, it just cracks me up sometimes, really. But speaking of funny things, okay, I have done that, and I'm pretty sure you have too. But let's clear up the air because I'm pretty sure crocheters don't know that. But have you ever crocheted a pattern? Like you're designing a pattern, right? You have it written up, but you know exactly you made a mistake in the original, and you hid it very well from your pictures. Do you remember which pattern it was, and what did you do?
Yes, I do. It was one of my blanket patterns, and this was thankfully a few years ago. I got the gauge completely wrong. I don't know what happened. I made my swatch. I took a gauge. I wrote down, my measurements. I knew how many stitches and how many rows, and I set to work. I don't know what else was going on in my life, but I somehow didn't lay the thing out while I was crocheting it. It was the longest, narrowest blanket I think anybody's ever made. It would have been, I don't know, for a really large hallway. It could have been a great carpet runner.
Oh my God.
Realized what I did, kind of scrunched it up in all the photos. You couldn't really see the shape. Retook the proper gauge that actually occurred in the blanket. Rewrote, new row count, new stitch count. But yeah, always. Gauge gets all of us in the end. It really does.
Oh my God. I had something similar to that with a cardigan. I did not
Mm,
block it because the yarn wasn't very good with blocking. You know, some yarns are just, especially bulky
yeah.
yarns, are very hard to block sometimes.
Yes.
And I didn't block it. And I also didn't notice that my tension has been getting looser over the years. I don't know if it's just
Mm.
me or it's just because I'm using furls hooks. My tension's gotten a lot looser and
That
didn't
probably
notice
does have something
that.
to do with it.
Yeah, and I didn't notice it, but because the yarn was so heavy, right?
Hmm.
I went and I've been wearing it quite a bit. I didn't notice it. So when I then took the swatch or the gauge, I measured the gauge without the swatch, just from the actual
Mm.
project. It seemed very off. I'm like, something's not right.
Yeah.
Why is it everything so stretched? Like it wasn't like that at the beginning. So I had to make
Yeah.
another swatch with the original yarn when I had left over just to get the gauge right. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hear you.
It cracks me up. It's one thing I remember when I first started designing, there were a lot of designers who would list not just like the laid flat gauge, but like
Hmm.
a hung gauge where they
Hmm.
would actually make a swatch and like pin clips and stuff to the bottom of it.
Yes.
And I feel like that is a good idea for like the wearing size to give you that information.
Yes.
But when you're crocheting it, I don't know. I just don't feel like most people are going to be like, well, let me hang this up for 2 days now and see. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's not as practical. But then, of
Yes.
course, you're always going to run into if somebody does a yarn substitution. Do they end up with the
Yes.
same effect? Who knows anyway? So,
That's true. That reminds me also of hats. You know, some people say don't
yeah.
wear the hats that you just designed because the gauge will be off. I'm like, how do I know if it's going to fit? You know, for me, I'm going to wear it. It's like
Mm,
I'm measuring according to how I'm wearing it because most people, when they crochet it and then they're going to
mhm.
try it on, they're going to try it on. They're not going to just assume,
Yeah.
okay, that's going to be fitting. I'm not going to touch it until I measured if everything is
Hmm.
correct, you know, but I feel you.
Yeah.
That reminds me kind of something else, since we're talking about mistakes. Do you have a strange crochet habit that you have never talked about, but it's there and you're okay now talking
Ooh,
about it publicly?
gosh, that's a tough one.
I know
Hmm.
sometimes
I don't know if
it's
it's strange, but
or
probably
unique, maybe unique.
one of the more unique things, just talking to other crocheters, is that I
Mhm.
really tend to be a one project at a time person. It seems
Oh
like everybody talks about like they've got a million whips, and all this.
yeah.
And I'll have different ideas and I might have the yarn set aside for different projects,
Hmm.
but I don't typically start one project until I've finished the one before that.
That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I know that's not normal. It's rare and it's not true at the moment because I did start a project for the blog and realized, well, I wanted to do some Tunisian this month. So I
Yeah.
started a Tunisian project and I forgot how much longer Tunisian takes.
Oh yes.
So I've had to put that one in timeout. It will come back later, but quicker project in the meantime. That one will come back in a little bit.
That's
But
true.
yeah, other than that, I am one person through to one project, one project, one project. Very monogamous,
Yeah,
but
for
serial
me,
monogamy.
it's very similar, but not exactly. I consider it doing one project at a time, but I do put quite a bit of them into timeout.
Yeah.
So, like once they're in timeout, they might be forgotten for a few years.
Mm,
You know,
okay. Well, there is
um,
that one blanket,
yeah.
the one blanket of doom we won't talk about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like the pile of shame, right? How many do you have in
Hmm.
there, right? I don't
Oh,
know. For
yeah.
me, it's not a pile. For me, it's a bunch of bags. They're all tied
Mm.
up and somehow hidden in my closet. So,
Yeah,
but
and full disclosure, like if I make a blanket with a lot of ends, the
yeah,
pictures probably don't have the ends actually woven in. They've been tucked underneath. I'll weave them in later, but there's a deadline. I got to get those photos taken.
yes.
They're just getting tucked underneath and the photos are taken.
Oh my gosh. Same thing for what I just sent you. We're not going to talk about that just yet because at the
Mm,
point of publishing this podcast, it's not going to be live yet. But we do have a collaboration between you and I,
yes.
well, with the other designers too. But the part that I'm doing, no, there's no yarn woven in at that point when the pictures were taken.
Totally
So if anyone
understandable.
sees
Totally
it later,
understandable.
the yarn was not
Yeah,
woven in. Didn't get
it
to that
happens.
point. All right. So let me ask you something totally different. We were talking about yarn. And so considering your family, I
Mm,
actually personally don't remember how many family members you have, but let's say you think of each family member and you would take a yarn. each yarn kind of has their characteristics. So if you give
Hmm.
your family member a yarn, which one, you don't have to name the names of your family members. Feel free to just say son, daughter, or something. Who would be which yarn?
Oh gosh,
The first thing
hmm.
that pops in your mind.
I think I have 3 kids and a husband. I have a daughter, and for her, I think velvet because the velvet yarn,
Mm-hmm.
because she is really soft and kind of delicate in her own way, but also really strong and beautiful,
Yeah.
and but maybe needs a little extra care.
Oh,
And
yes.
then,
I hear you. Velvet is
yeah,
very much like that.
yes, very much so. I'm trying to think. Yarn, yarn, yarn. Um, for my husband, I think I would have to say, and this is gonna sound weird because he doesn't cook,
Hmm.
but like a kitchen cotton.
Oh, yeah.
He makes me so happy, and I just love. It's so weird. One of the first yarns I picked up was obviously Lily Sugar and Cream, right? It's
Hmm.
on every store shelf. You
Hmm.
go into Walmart or
Yeah.
wherever, you're learning to crochet, you're not ready to go into the yarn stores and craft stores yet. You see those beautiful bright balls of Lily Sugar and Cream.
Yes.
And yeah, he makes me happy and he's there when I need him.
Hmm.
And I think, but the possibilities are unlimited and you can do more than you'd think with,
That's true.
a really
And it's
great cotton yarn.
strong, right? It's
And it
strong
is.
yarn. It doesn't stretch
Yes.
very much. So it holds
No.
tight. And so you have that bond, right? So
Yes,
that's
for
awesome. I
sure.
love it.
For sure. And then for my sons, gosh, I would say my middle child, he's the one people ask me about the most.
Hmm.
Over this past summer, he had open heart surgery. He had a heart valve replacement. So naming a yarn for him, I'm gonna have to say, and this is gonna sound weird, but Bernat blanket. He
Hmm.
is so sweet and he's just the most caring guy and he loves to be at home, and feel like that yarn just loves like it's a home thing. Like you make
That's
a blanket you
true.
cuddle up on your couch with.
Yes.
And yeah, so I would assign that one to him. And then for my youngest, I'm trying to think. He's a little spicier. He's also a homebody, but he's a little bit he's more of my adventurer. So
Hmm.
for him, maybe something a little more fun and exciting. You know what? For him, I'm gonna say Red Heart Super Saver Ombre
Oh, there you
because he's
go.
colorful
Yes.
in his own way, but he's also really stoic and strong.
Hmm. I love that.
And yeah, something it
I
works for him.
love
We'll just
that.
leave it at that.
Oh, I love that. I love that combination. That's really interesting. It gives kind of some idea, who your family's about without even naming anyone. I love that. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Um, but I actually have a couple more other questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of the questions I've gotten from our audience is, and if in case anyone doesn't know, you guys can submit questions to me that I get to ask our awesome designers. And one of the questions was, do you snack while you crochet? And what is your favorite snack that you eat? It doesn't have to be snack, it can be a meal,
Yeah.
but what kind of
Yeah.
foods do you like to eat?
Well, it's funny. One of the reasons that I wanted to learn to crochet
Hmm.
was specifically to keep my hands busy so that I wouldn't
Hmm.
do other things I wasn't supposed to be doing with my hands,
Yeah.
like feeding my face. Or when I really first learned how to crochet before I even had children, it was to try and quit smoking.
Oh,
It was the 90s.
interesting.
It was the 90s. Um, don't judge. I quit. But long, long time ago. But
Yes.
yeah, so I don't typically snack while I am crocheting. For me,
Hmm.
crocheting, unless I'm doing it like at my desk, to like get something
Yes.
done really quick for a sample or a swatch or
Yes.
something,
Hmm.
that's something I typically do in the evenings or on the
Hmm.
weekends, where I can just sit down and kind of focus on the project. And I'm
Hmm.
not distracted by, emails dinging in and all that stuff.
Yes.
So typically it's more often a beverage with my
That's cool.
crochet. Once in a while, if it's something that really needs some encouraging of myself, I'll have maybe like some M&Ms or something lined up
Yes.
where like I can have like one after every row
Hmm.
to get myself through that one. But no,
It's
typically I try not to snack while I'm crocheting. Um, if I do need to, I love Cheetos, which sounds really
mhm.
weird, but I will use chopsticks. so I don't
Yes,
get my
because you
hands
don't want to
dirty.
get your stuff
Yeah.
dirty. That is actually
But
one
and
of the
yeah.
reasons I don't eat while I crochet.
Yeah.
Now, I might, play around with my phone once in a while to take a break, or
Sure.
watch TV or something like that. But I also don't eat at the same time. I just more worried
Yeah.
that I get my stuff dirty. And then, especially
Yeah.
us, we have to take pictures. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
no.
yeah. I did once I spilled coffee on a crochet project, and yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah.
That was really horrible. I think I was able to get it out and kinda hide it, but
Hmm.
at one corner, I was just so disappointed with myself.
No, I get that.
So, yeah.
Oh, happens. I've
It
done it
does.
after. I was lucky enough that
Yeah.
I've done that after pictures were taken. But if it's before, oh, I would have been the same as you.
Yeah. It's the worst.
Okay, I have one more fun question.
Mhm.
Just something I like to think about. And I've done this question for a few people in public before. If you would see yourself as a movie, someone would make a movie about you, who would you use as the actor or actress to be you, to display you in the
Ooh.
movie?
Hmm. Good question. You know, for the hair, I would love it if it would be Natasha Lyonne. She has amazing curly hair that I envy
Hmm.
very much, and her ability to wear bangs with it. Don't even understand how that happens, but I'm amazed by it. But I will say I had a friend once say that she thought if somebody would play me in a movie, it would be Laura Linney, and I thought that was a wonderful
Oh,
compliment that I was very happy to take. So,
I love
big
that.
Ozark fan, so
I love
okay,
that.
anytime.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
It's just so interesting to even think about. It's like who could play me,
yeah.
And I also love how people see it from different perspectives. Some people see it from their personality, like I'm this,
Mm,
I have that personality, and some people just look at the looks of it. I just love that. There's a different way of
yeah.
people thinking. But speaking of something different, I know that you have a book some people probably don't know about. Why don't you tell us about your book? And by the way, if anyone wants it in the end, there's a link in the description for all the information. So if anyone wants to grab it, Tamara, tell us about your book.
Well, it is Quick Crochet for the Home. It's been out for a few years now, but it really does my goal for this one is to go through every room of the home and pick out a few projects that you could make to really just add that yarny touch to your home. Most
Hmm.
of them are designed to work up quickly, so there's a
Hmm.
variety of yarn weights, but when it's really thin yarn, we might hold it doubled or even tripled, to keep making it a quick project. But
Totally.
there's just a really fun variety of items in here made with a whole variety of yarns. And it was really fun, a really fun project. It's my only book so far. But yeah, it was a really, really fun thing to do.
Yes.
And it was really neat to kind of have something physical to hold. As designers, we have our projects, but
That's
look at this,
true.
I wrote a book.
I love it. I'm actually going to put that on my card as soon as we're done here because, hey, I got to check this out. And I love home stuff. I have a lot of home stuff myself that I design. So I actually have to say, in case I didn't say in the beginning, I actually look up to you a lot. And we met in person, and I was like, oh my God, I met Tara. I just remember that. And I was like, yeah, I was so excited. And in case
Well,
nobody knows,
thank
she's
you.
actually very tall, which I didn't know when I first I saw Tamara. I was like, oh, she's actually much taller than me. I have to look up. And I'm average size, just to keep that in mind. So I love that. So I was so honored to meet you. And thank you for being part of my very first episode. That is such an honor. I'm really excited. And I hope everyone loved it. Please, everyone, share this video, and I hope you had a fun time. Be sure to also subscribe to Tamara's email as well as her YouTube channel, and check out her on social media. I have all the links down below, so you can check that out. Thank you, Tamara, for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun and it was a real honor. And I can't wait to maybe do it again sometime.
Yes, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.